Alright, so we're going to try this one with the heat on. So yesterday I went ahead and I had a conversation with my coach, and I wanted to just kind of share a lot of the things that he had to say with you guys. So the conversation was kind of about my purple belt, not, when am I going to get it, but what are his expectations that I'm not currently meeting in order to be promoted up to purple belt. And I want to share for you kind of the things that he said, because he actually said a lot of things that were talking about what it means to be a white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. And I know that we talk about wrestling here, but what he had to say I think is very, very important in regards to and I think this is completely applicable across all wrestling styles. So when you're a white belt, which, if you're watching this channel, you're probably, the equivalent of that. And especially if you are practicing. I would say you haven't even earned your white belt yet if you're not practicing. So go ahead and start doing that. But when you're a white belt, really what you should be focusing on are going to be the basics, right? You want to know your positions, you want to start learning how to control, you want to start learning how to escape, and you should know what the basic submissions look like, okay? You're expected as a white belt to be doing stupid shit all the time, right? You're going to be extending your arms all the time, you're going to be pushing people off, you're going to be laying there and waiting for something to happen when you're in the bottom. You may not even be protecting. You're going to be turning your back to people all the time, and your back's going to get taken all the time, because that's what white belts do, okay? So when you get to the blue belt, you should have generally at least been exposed to most of the foundational things that are out there. You should have those things, not just that you know what side control looks like and how to transition into knee ride and how to do a far side arm bar, but you should actually have that already kind of showing up in your rolling, and you should be hitting that on a somewhat regular basis, especially against other white belts. And you should be starting to hold your own against blue belts, and you should be at sometimes even winning against blue belts, and you should definitely be at the point when you are rolling with somebody who only has like one stripe on their belt or whatever. You should be at that point where you're starting to beat them somewhat regularly, okay? And I think that's one of the things is that the biggest jump between belts, in my opinion, is the jump between white and blue belts. So again, I know that we are not talking about the belt system here, but I want you guys to kind of think about, okay, what stage do you think that you're at? And how should you be guiding yourself, since, I'm not there to actually coach you directly. And the thing is I think that you should be looking at the playlists, and I think that there are somewhere around 30 some odd technique-based playlists right now. And really, you should be paying a lot of attention to anyone that had to do with top control. You should be paying attention to the ones that have to do with just like basic guards, right? You should know how to do a couple sweeps. You should, and start with the ones that speak to you guys. And this is one of the points that he did make, which is that, when you are a white belt, you shouldn't be trying to decide what your game is. What you should be doing is you should be focusing on understanding what the game overall is, right? You need to understand what the foundations of the game is, and be trying to incorporate foundational things, but your focus should absolutely be on foundational basic stuff. And one of the things that I had mentioned in our conversation was that on this channel, which I did bring up, it is the only channel that I know of online that talks about the basics. If you go to a normal BJJ or submission wrestling channel where they teach you any types of techniques, they're going to usually go with the fancy shit and the stuff that they just came up with, or the stuff that's the technique of the day sort of deal, and that's not healthy for you, okay? And the story that he kind of gave me was that, when he was just starting out, or when he was a blue belt, so he was at my rank, and he actually has said that, I'm kind of further along as a blue belt than he was when he was a blue belt, and times have changed and the expectations are higher, and that's part of the case. But he was going to a school where it felt like, God, all they ever do is teach us the same basic fundamentals all the time. And then a new school had opened up, and several of the people that were in his school had deflected to the new school where they were showing a brand new technique all the time. And, people that he had talked to, his friends that had switched schools, were very, very excited. Like, yeah, we don't ever see the same technique twice. And his response to that was, well, then how the fuck are you expected to learn anything, right? This was always a big thing for me as a personal trainer, is that when people came in and they had little to no experience, or all their experience came out of reading Men's Health or something like that, and they came in wanting to me to teach them in one session, right, 1 or 5 sessions, everything that they needed to know about the gym. It just didn't happen. There's not enough time to go over your entire body and teach you how to train all the even foundational movements that you need to be able to exercise in the gym. What I found was that you needed at least 15 sessions, and the structure for that, if I was trying to teach you the basics, is I'm going to have you do a push day, a pull day, and a leg day. And legs is usually like leg and core or something like that, or I'll integrate the core on the push and pull days, like front chain, back chain, legs. And the thing about that is that like I would do 15 sessions that way so that you saw everything 5 times before I said, okay, you're probably at the point right now where you're going to remember these 3 workouts and be consistent enough with them that you're actually going to be able to do this on your own. But at the same time, you're not going to know how to progress yourself from there. And so, no, a personal trainer cannot teach you everything you need to know in 1 to 5 sessions. It's just not possible. And so, when you guys go through my exercise videos, I strongly recommend that you actually watch them before you ever do those exercises every single time, at least, 5 to 10 times, until you have that movement down perfectly. And you'll probably even start noticing things that I do wrong on those, and that's perfectly fine as long as you understand the concept and you're executing them to the best of your ability. But, the biggest thing that I see a lot of times with newer people is and it's a complaint that I hear from them as well, which is that I don't remember what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm rolling. All right? So that's the thing, is that you should be doing, we have in our school, it's structured as the B12, B24, B36, and B48, right? And so Mondays, you'll be going through the B12s. Tuesdays, you go through the B24, so on and so forth, through Thursday. And then every 12 weeks, they repeat. And that's the basic curriculum. And everybody, no matter what their level is encouraged to actually do those classes all the time, because you're reinforcing those foundations, and those foundations are what going to get you to actually be good. So when Brian's school had closed and he ended up going to the next school where everybody else had gone to, he was only there for about a month or 2, but he was rolling with everybody there that was doing all this fancy berimbolo shit. They were doing all the gogoplatas and rubber guards and all that. And he was just owning all of them because they did not have that basic foundation to work up from. So, it's always cool to be going around and going, okay, I'm going to learn this fancy thing and this fancy thing and this fancy thing, which is great. You should absolutely learn those things, but not at the expense of the foundations, because without the foundations, those techniques don't work. They will not translate into your rolling. So if you really want to get good, you have to be trying to create a foundational base, and then the rest is just garnish, right? The rest is seasoning, okay? So if you can't cook a steak or a piece of chicken properly, and you're just trying to cover up the fact that you have this dry-ass piece of meat that's way overcooked, it doesn't matter how you garnish it and put sauces or season it or whatever. Your foundation is crap, and it's not going to go the way that you want it to. So it's really, really important to me that you guys are focusing on the basics, and that's one of the reasons why most of the playlists that I've done, and the reason why they're in the order that they are, is so I can give you that basic foundational structure. And then Brian also said that, hey, you should totally watch those fancy videos. You should totally be trying to learn from them. And that it's not his job to teach me the fancy shit. It's his job to make me good. And the way we get good is through a good, solid foundational structure and a good understanding of wrestling. So I would encourage you to do as much as you can to really drill and learn those foundational basic things so that you can actually progress and start getting into the fancy stuff. So when you are a beginner, when you are the equivalent of a white belt, it is really, really hyper and critical that you are focusing on just understanding the game. Just understanding pressure, connection, being rooted into the floor, how to escape without getting yourself into trouble. How do you can start to set up a submission without compromising your position, right? So everything that you do should meet that end, okay? Once you start getting a really solid foundation and you can control like crazy, you don't put yourself into bad situations, you can get submissions once in a while, you have pretty good timing on your sweeps, you're not muscling everything, but you're using like blocks instead of muscling, you're using leverage, you're using your body weight the way that you should be, and you're moving across the map the way that you should be. Then you can start looking into the fancy stuff and start trying to incorporate that into your game. And so that's kind of where the way that I've seen like the blue belts being described a lot of times is that is the belt of exploration, right? It is where you start being at that level where you are good enough that you can start understanding how to bring things into your game. And then, and this is what he said about, you know, me moving on to my purple belt is that I don't specialize right now. That's not entirely true, but I don't have very specific things that I throw into my game, right? And so, you know, where that's not true is that I like to play a lot of open guards with my feet and having sleep control and whatnot. That's an area that I do focus in. When I pass a guard, I generally am going to be using some variation of an over-under pass if I can. That's just my highest percentage pass. It's kind of second nature for me to start doing something along those lines. I have things that I prefer to use. And that's kind of what it is that when you start getting to the higher end of blue belt, you've done your experimentation and you start settling on those things that make you better, the things that really, really work for you. And then you start working on your timing and you start developing your style. And that's what's going to bring me into purple belt and what's going to bring me eventually into my brown belt. And when you get to your brown belt level, a lot of times whatever you specialized in as a purple belt kind of flutters off, right? It goes outside of your game, and you start doing other things, and you become a little bit more generalized again, kind of like you were when you were in your blue belt phase, but you are coming back to that in a more understanding position, right? You have a better understanding of the roundedness of jiu-jitsu. And the thing is that a brown belt, in a lot of ways, is a black belt in BJJ. So, you know, they have the same level, they're just not quite as refined, as well, as knowledgeable as they are. And a lot of times in a lot of schools, the difference between a brown belt and a black belt is how much are you giving back to the community. Okay, are you teaching classes? Are you encouraging people? Are you working with the people who are under you, helping them develop? And that's kind of what a black belt is. And when people get to different levels as a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I think this is true of judo as well, is that, you know, it's about how much time you are contributing to the community. So if you know, are a black belt and all you ever do is compete and you're just kind of there, you're probably going to stay at that level of black belt. You're not going to start getting your stripes on that, working towards your coral belt. I may not be wrong on that. I may not be right on that, and whatever. But generally speaking, like the people who do advance in jiu-jitsu from getting their black belt and start working towards getting their coral belt, it's like you get a stripe every 5 years or so, and a lot of times, like, maybe you develop a new system, a new approach to how you roll that somebody hasn't come up with before. You're inventing new things, you're teaching new things to other people. You're participating in the jiu-jitsu community, and that's what tends to get you up to that higher level. So that's kind of, my biggest takeaway of all of this. And the big announcement is that I did make on the Facebook and Telegram groups is that I will be teaching classes at my school here in the upcoming months. I will put out a bigger announcement when that's official and we are actually starting those classes, but those are going to be LGBTQ specific. They're not like I'm just going to start teaching the basic class. No, it's that I'm going to be teaching LGBTQ classes, which will be basic classes, at least in the beginning, depending on what our student retention is and whatnot. I might start to progress into more advanced techniques, but for right now it's just going to be basics, and that's a good thing. And another note is that, I had somebody, and maybe I should do this in a separate video, so I think I'm going to leave this there. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that here in a moment in another video. So, have a good one, guys. Thanks for listening.